What do you wish more people understood? askReddit guys, subscribe now, or I will ride on your cat. Not being available 24/7 despite being reachable 24/7 is not a crime. Seriously. I've gotten semi-chewed out by a PM before, after he called me on a Saturday evening to update some documents, and I was like, you don't want me to do that, I'm pretty drunk. Sorry, I'm drunk. It's Saturday and I'm watching hockey, I can be drunk. Leave me alone. I've got a friend who works for Ups, and he has a habit of reaching for a shot of whiskey before answering his phone if work calls him on a day off. Then he answers the phone with, "Before you say anything, I can't come in, because I've been drinking." Brilliant. It's hard to say, I've smoked pot, can't make it in. End marijuana prohibition. In some European countries they have made it illegal to contact employees about work after work hours lol. They can't even ML after work hours. I drive HGVs, trucks, in the UK, and it's illegal to ring drivers on rest. I worked for a firm that expected you to go home and then wait for the call for your start time the following day. If it came while you were sleeping, tough. Eventually someone rang the police and the transport manager was sacked. Interesting little story on that. My stepmom is retired. My dad still works, but can do about 90% of his job remote. My stepmom was learning French, so they went to France for 4 weeks. My dad was still actually working, albeit in an Airbnb in France. But there was one conference call he needed to take in an office. IDKY exactly. I think it had to do with the security encryption needed to handle whatever they were talking about, and it was after his. Microsoft actually had to clear him coming into the office at 8 PM, local Paris time, with whomever handles that in Paris. The rationale was that my dad scanning his badge to allow himself in so late would have triggered someone calling Microsoft and asking, "Why is this employee being forced to work so late?" I have had a very stressful job in construction where I was expected to be available, but I refused to work on Sunday. It took me 3 years to get my boss to understand that I do not answer my phone on Sunday. I don't even turn it on. I once turned it on a Monday morning to 23 voicemails. Haha. This is the answer. Work can't call you if your phone isn't on. If I could afford it, I would have 2 numbers. One for friends/family and one for work 100,000%. An old job I worked at, I was called at 2 AM because we were short-staffed. 2 AM, 2 in the ein blood clot morning. I quit soon after. I once booked the whole day off from work when I was 16 to 17 for a family event. My mom made a huge deal over me being there for dinner, so I told my manager I cannot work. Still proceeds to call me during dinner asking if I can come in cause they're short-staffed and didn't expect it to be so busy. I went on to say, sorry, I don't think I can. I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm with my family, so I've already had a few drinks with them, and since I'm still underage I shouldn't be coming in to cover with alcohol on my breath. Then my manager starts to accuse me of being loaded at 6 PM, laughs at me when I say no, and then asks again if I'm sure I can't come in, and it's like, bro off, I'm with my family, already had a few drinks as I'm allowed to in my own home under my parents' supervision, and I've already told you prior to this night that I won't be available. Drove me nuts when they pulled crap like that on me. The importance of mental health. I wish it was viewed to be equally important as physical health by more people. I got a letter from my doctor today threatening to ban me forever because I wrote on their questionnaire I'm miserable. They don't care that I basically wanna die, but they are really upset about that swear word. Defiantly leave this comment as a Yelp review to let people know not to trust this and find the help you need. Asking for it is hard, and I commend you for advocating for yourself while unwell. Good luck. Thanks. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's possible to change doctors in the UK. They kinda make you go to a specific one based on your address. Oh well, I was probably going to move soon anyway. I was kinda just stuck due to COVID. I live in the UK too. It's quite easy to change doctors. Just phone up a new practice and ask to register. There may be a questionnaire you have to fill out, but that's it really. Thanks, we'll look into it. This place has always been a huge pain anyway. Have only been in the UK 1 year, so not confident about how stuff works. Just because there is a law allowing you to do something doesn't mean it's right. Just because something is against the law doesn't make it wrong. I think this especially applies to freedom of speech. Just because you can say almost whatever you want doesn't mean you always should. Added almost. And that the First Amendment of the US Constitution only protects you from the US government. It does not protect you from private companies, contracts or NDAs you freely signed, arguments from randos on the street, or foreign governments when you're on their soil. There may be laws protecting you from some of these in certain situations, but the First Amendment does not. You probably know this already, but I have to make sure. Freedom of speech doesn't actually mean you can say whatever you want. There are limitations to that freedom. For example, real threats. You can't just say I'm gonna kill you to someone. Another example is fighting words, which is to say something that will disrupt the peace. Like if you provoke a fight by saying something rude. Just because you haven't seen or experienced something firsthand does not mean that it doesn't exist. Tell that to my dad, who always told me I couldn't be tired from stress. The older someone is, the worse they tend to be with this. Don't try to convince boomers of things. Just learn what you can from them and move on. Even if they are not used, pianos should be tuned at least once per year. Otherwise, the strings can become brittle and their ability to be flexible for tuning purposes compromised. Likewise, the tuning pins and the pin block can become resistant to change and not hold the strings steady once they've been tuned. This is so specific, and as a former repairman / sound engineer, I thank you for posting this. Is it possible for a non-professional to learn to tune a piano? Of course it is. It's like any other skill. Some may be more naturally inclined towards it, but anyone can do it if they have discipline, practice and study. History and its repetition. People tend to think that people who lived hundreds of years before us were stupid because they didn't have our technology and were superstitious. Humanity has always been the same. In the words of Mark Twain, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. It baffles me how many educated people have no grasp of history. They may know the date of an event, but they stop there and have no knowledge of the context or the meaning. If you would pay attention, you have a pretty good idea of the parallels with the present. There are still plenty of superstitions, witch hunts abound, feudalism just looks slightly different, and masses of uneducated peasants will work their entire lives to support their master. The window dressing is just a bit different. Not only that, but society was far less developed too. We see all these horrible moral issues they saw as just part of life, and I guarantee another couple hundred years from now people will look back on us similarly. That being said though, in a lot of ways society never develops. In a lot of ways people are still making the same mistakes and behaving in the same ways as they did 2000 years ago. Actually, all of the social issues that exist today existed in the past too. It's part of that as real Thegrim Reaper was talking about. Everyone wants to pretend that it's all new now, that history doesn't matter, and people can just ignore the past and be angry and throw out the rulebook. But that rulebook was hard won, fought for over hundreds and maybe even thousands of years by people much smarter than the average Joe alive today, because those people who stand out. Even through the cloud of centuries past, you can find thinking about the morality of homosexuality in the Jewish Bible, for instance, or in Buddhism, both over 2000 years back in history, both with different takes on it. You can find another take on it in ancient Greece, and another in feudal Japan. Likewise, you'd find accounts of drug use in Aztec civilizations, Greeks hand-wringing about the effect new technology, writing, was having on the brains of the next generation, etc. You'd be hard-pressed to find any social issue that doesn't trace right back to any well-recorded society, however long ago. There's a reason why the founders of America, and Europe as we know it today, studied ancient Rome and revered it so much. A reason why the White House and city halls all across the Western world are built in the Roman style. Mental health can look different for everyone. Just because my depression or anxiety looks different from yours doesn't make it any easier to deal with. But you sounded normal on the phone the other day. I have only 2 friends, one of whom I work with, the other is my girlfriend. I have no desire to make new friends and don't experience loneliness. I understand the concept and it sounds terrible, but I just don't have that feeling. I was diagnosed as agoraphobic earlier this year. It might explain some of it, but it doesn't feel like that's quite right either. That's all Reddit guys, and don't forget please subscribe, or I will ride on your cat.